Greetings and welcome, folks, to Mind the Moment in Everyday Life. Now, each month we take a theme, we explore how mindfulness can support us in bringing that theme to life in our everyday lives. Now, our theme for June is What Nature Teaches Us About Mindfulness. I'm your host, John Roberts from Living Well Community, the on-demand and virtual and interactive programming created for you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. And here with me today, and for these first three Tuesdays in June, is your mindfulness guide and my friend, Colleen Camenisch. Welcome, Colleen. How are you this morning? This
I'm doing
afternoon?
great. Yes, yes. Well, still morning for me on the
It's
West
morning for you.
Coast.
Because I
But
guess
good afternoon.
I learned you're on Pacific time,
Yes,
the most
Pacific.
noble of all the time zones, I feel. And just speaking of which, Colleen, now during these sessions, we're going to have a chance to get to know you as a mindfulness teacher, but I'd love to get to know you a little bit as I guess a fellow human being. First of all, now you live in Nevada, which makes you officially the only person I know who lives in Nevada. Now, for those of us who are in New England, which is many of us, what would we be surprised to learn about Nevada?
We get snow. And
Hmm,
and
that
we
is
get a lot of
surprising.
it. In one season we had, I think, more snow than anywhere else in the US. So we have the Sierra Nevadas right between, California and northern Nevada where we get a ton of snow. Mostly in the mountains. That's usually the good thing. And sometimes it comes down into the valley. Um,
Now, are you in the mountains or are you in the valley? Or are you both? You're a little bit of both.
we're in the valley. We're in the
You're a
valley, which
valley
also
person.
makes it's
Mhm.
also one of the bumpiest airports in the country. So that's the problem with mountains and valleys.
Now, I'm gonna out you here, Colleen, because you're actually in Reno, the which I was just I just corrected my let's see, the biggest little city. Is that right? Biggest little city in the world.
The
Did I get
biggest
that
little
right?
city in the world. That's right.
Uh,
You've got it.
is is it does it hold up to the reputation? Is that
It
true? You're
completely does. Yes, there's a lot of people here now, but we all still know each other. It's fascinating and really, really cool.
beautiful. All right, now, folks, we'd love for you to be part of this conversation today as well. So don't hesitate to open up the chat. Let us know of any questions or comments that arise as we're going here today. But Colleen, I'd like to turn it over to you. How would you like to lead us this morning as we talk about nature and mindfulness?
Yes, so I love getting to share these practices, and I'm so happy to get to be here to share them with all of you over the next few weeks. And what I think is really special about this is that when things kind of feel stirred up or unstable, I think it's so helpful for us to be able to tap into the qualities of stability that we find throughout nature. So that will be a big part of our exploration. And I think something that it's always helpful for me to remember is that we are actually a part of nature. And so by doing these practices, we can kind of really reconnect with and start to lean into the solid and stable nature of the body and the natural world around us to feel supported. And so for today, I wanted to guide us in a practice where we will be exploring the earth element. So I would encourage you to find just a comfortable posture. It might be sitting in a chair, it might be lying down on the ground. It depends on where you are and what's possible for you and what feels right for your body. So maybe just taking some moments to settle in. And if you'd like to, you can close the eyes, or maybe because this is a practice of nature, if there's a window nearby, you could peer out the window or take a downward gaze and we'll get started with this practice. And so maybe we can start this practice by just taking some moments to just make a transition from whatever you've been doing before you got here today to arriving here in a very real way. Maybe just noticing with kind of this wide lens how the body is in this particular moment. Maybe noticing how the mind is. And nothing that we need to change or to make a different way, but sometimes it's nice just to have the time to intentionally stop and to check in and just to notice how things are. And we'll start this practice by bringing awareness to the body, and we'll start to scan through the body, noticing all the aspects of stability and structure that exist within the body. And as we move throughout the body, I also know all of us have a different experience with the body. Maybe there have been additions, things that have added structure or stability. Or maybe there are parts of the body that aren't quite as strong and stable as they used to be. And so, really staying with your own direct experience, knowing that this practice doesn't have to be any particular way. So, let's bring awareness to the feet, where you might notice the different bones. And the bones and the feet, in particular, as I'm thinking about them, have a quality of both stability but also flexibility. So we can sense into the stable nature of them, the kind of flat, solid nature of the feet. And then the bones with the different joints that allow us to be able to move. So this stability and flexibility that can happen simultaneously. And then maybe starting to move the attention to the ankles. This is a joint, a connection point between the feet and the lower legs, a point of mobility and movement, but also structure. So if you're seated, you might notice the way that the ankles are supporting the lower legs and stabilizing the posture. If you're resting in a different posture, maybe noticing how the ankles are resting, but still a connection point, a part of the structure of the body. And then starting to move the awareness into the lower legs, where we might notice the bone and the muscles. The lower legs stabilizing the posture that we're in, particularly if we're seated. And then maybe noticing the knees, again, a joint, a connection point, but also a part of the body with so many bony areas that protect this joint. And again, offer both stability and flexibility at the same time. And then we can start to move into the upper legs, the back of the upper legs, the area from the knee all the way up to the top of the hips. For many people, providing a stable base for standing or sitting or lying down. Again, we have different muscles and tendons that support the structure of the body, that support the strength and stability. We can bring awareness around to the tops of the upper legs. Again, the area from the knees all the way up to the top of the hips. We might notice the bone or the muscles. And then maybe starting to move awareness into the the tailbone, the vertebrae in this part of the body, and the bone. Again, providing stability, but also movement, structure. It's the beginning of holding the torso upright. And then maybe moving into the lower back. And if you're seated, just noticing the vertebrae. Maybe they're in contact with the surface that the body is resting on. Maybe you're aware of how this part of the body is supporting you in this posture. And as we wrap around to the stomach, there's a quality of softness. Although the organs have stability and structure, helping all the different systems in the body to work. And then moving up to the rib cage providing really safety for the very vital systems that are beneath that help us breathe and help the blood to circulate through the body. And we can actually sense the expansion and contraction of the rib cage with each breath, maybe in the front of the body and maybe even in the back of the body as we move to the upper back. Noticing the tops of the shoulders, providing stability and structure for the arms. Noticing the bones of the upper arms resting maybe alongside the body, the joint of the elbow, the stability of the lower arms, the wrists, the hands, and all of the fingers. So our hands, again, so special and unique that they're both solid and flexible. Sometimes we think about just one or the other, but not how they're both so important. This ability to be flexible and have some sense of structure and solidity. And then maybe moving our attention from the fingers all the way back up to the tops of the shoulders, noticing the neck, supporting the weight of the head, and the head supporting all the different systems that happen there, the function of thinking, the skull really like protecting the brain and all the different other qualities of hearing and smelling and seeing. So just connecting to the entirety of the body. Just as I'm thinking of the entire body, there's this fascial tissue that provides structure and stability throughout the whole thing. So we might have some awareness of all of the internal supports that we have. And then we can start to turn our attention to all of the external supports. So how this body is being supported. Maybe you could sense this right at the level of the feet with the ground beneath you and how that's supporting the feet or the body, the posture that you've taken, the ground providing this stable base. Or maybe you're aware of the support of the surface that you're sitting on or lying on. We can experience gravity, the sensations of gravity, literally grounding us, keeping us connected to the ground and the earth. We can experience gravity through the weight of the body. Maybe we notice the weight of the body being supported by the surface that we're on. And maybe there's even the possibility of allowing the body to be supported. To lean into the structures of stability, the external structures of stability. Maybe you have some awareness of the hands. Maybe they're in contact with each other, and there might be some support just in that. The stability the hands can provide for each other. Or maybe you're aware again of the sense of gravity if you notice the weight of the hands on another part of the body, if they're resting somewhere on the body. Or maybe if they're resting on another surface, aware of the support of that surface. We have all these external supports in the world around us that we can sense into, that we can touch into, that we actually rely on. And we have these kind of anchor points, the feet, the seat, the hands, that can remind us of the external supports. And then perhaps bringing attention to the breath and breathing. Or again, we might notice the internal stability of the rib cage and noticing the ribs as they kind of rise and fall with each breath. And as we breathe, we're so much connected to both what's happening internally and externally. With every inhalation, we're breathing in oxygen, which is truly supporting our ability to be alive. With every exhalation, we are breathing out carbon dioxide, which supports life around us. So just by simply breathing, and really even just by simply being, we're in the process of supporting and being supported, of giving and receiving, and perhaps of remembering the very interconnected and interdependent nature of ourselves and the world around us. Remembering that we are on earth and we are actually an expression of something that exists on earth. And so, because we're a part of nature, because we're a part of the interdependent, interconnected aspect of life, knowing that we can also feel into the resiliency of the earth and that you're a part of that too. The earth is always here in its immense capacity to hold you. And all that comes along with this human experience, all the thoughts, all the moods, all the emotions. I feel like it's this really beautiful reminder that we are a part of everything. We are connected to everything around us, when sometimes it can be easy to feel maybe isolated in our challenges. And that we can attune to both the structures of strength and stability that exist within us, and perhaps allowing ourselves also to be supported by all of the stability and supports that the world provides us too. So just as you feel ready, the eyes have been closed, perhaps beginning to open the eyes once again. And we'll connect with each other once again on screen.
Thank you, Colleen, for that. That was wonderful. Now, for folks who may want to do that practice, again, I've just dropped into the chat a couple of different places where we will be uploading the recording of today's session later this week. Now, again, we'd welcome any questions or comments, but Colleen, I actually believe that there was a question that you were going to pose to the group.
Yes. So, we did this practice where we can kind of tap into, the feet in contact with the ground or the hands or the seat or maybe the internal structures. And so, just curious to hear from folks what you feel like could be stabilizing or grounding for you just in your day-to-day life.
As folks are thinking and typing, Colleen, I just wanted to express a little bit of appreciation, if I could, for your beginning that meditation by talking about how some parts of the body may not be as strong as others in this moment or at this time in life, because I have hit this moment in my life at which sometimes if I'm bending over to pick something up, there's always that moment where I'm like, am I going to make it back up? And so it's good to keep that in mind, and also to know that not everyone has to do the meditation in the exact same way, that we can sort of tailor it to fit the body that we have either in this lifetime or on this day at this moment or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful to remember, John. In our bodies are also a part of nature, which we know changes. And that's a natural part of things, even though sometimes we might feel a little resistance to that. So yeah, it's a good reminder that and on every day we're going to feel a little bit different. So our body will feel different. And I think that's what keeps our practice interesting.
Well, I really this idea of the flexibility and the stability being sort of two sides of the same coin, I found was very profound, and I think is such an important thing to keep in mind as we live and as we age and as we also observe the Earth, because the Earth does not always feel stable, uh,
Yes.
and but if we are flexible, then we can work with those moments when maybe the Earth is feeling a little more flexible. Seeing some folks typing in the chat the things that bring them stability: the breath, points of contact on the body, presumably. Katie says, nature grounds me, going out and taking a deep breath and listening to the sounds around me. Anita, the ocean and the birds singing in the tree below my window. That's wonderful. It feels like such a lucky thing to be in a place right now where you can open up the windows and you can hear the birds. Colleen, what can you hear outside your window right now? Birds?
I can hear the sound of traffic. It's not as pleasant as the ocean and the birds, but it's fine. Also part of our current, evolution and the nature of things around us.
I was curious actually, because if is this of course I presume this is the type of meditation, the one you let us in, is the type of meditation that one can do outside. But if one walks outside their front door and they don't see the ocean or the forest, but instead maybe just a stream of traffic, do you have any thoughts on how they might still bring this sort of earth meditation into their experience, even in those sorts of circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I just think well, you pointed out, I live in Nevada where there are also earthquakes. So the ground is not always stable. But beneath us, I saw somewhere in Italy too, there was a volcano that erupted where they had to move people out. So the earth is of the changing nature of quality, but often it is stable and grounding. And if you walk out and there's a pavement road with cars driving on it, there's stability there. There's something holding up our body and the different houses that we may live in or buildings. And so we can always step into the grounding nature of the ground beneath us, I think.
And I'm reminded of, I believe it was George Carlin who said that whenever he sees a plant forcing itself up through a crack in the pavement, he just thinks, how heroic that is.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes.
Someone else in the chat says, I love how we are not so different from nature. The changing nature of our bodies and minds are so similar to how nature is always changing and transforming. Colleen, I loved this, something you said, that we are an expression of Earth. I thought that was such a beautiful and profound thing that I'm going to be absorbing, I think, for a bit of time now. But as an expression of Earth, I feel what I hear from that is that we can also draw on the energy and the knowledge from Earth, especially in those moments when things might seem a little bit topsy-turvy, as it were.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, when we think about just how old the planet is and how much it's been through and how resilient it's been, it's helpful to remember like we're a part of that. You know, we exist because it exists. And so yeah, I think it's really helpful to at least for me, sometimes I feel like a little bit separate from nature. Like especially like, you know, like I have a garden and I curate things. Like I feel like I'm curating nature and every time I do these practices, it's like, no, I'm a part of that. And to really remind myself of that.
I'm sitting here on the floor in my basement here is made of concrete, but as we were doing that meditation, I kept wanting to be outside and I wanted to be putting my feet in the dirt and really feeling sort of I think there's no better expression than the stability slash flexibility dual principle than putting your feet into dirt, which is has both qualities in, uh, just emanating from it. But, let's see. So Julia says, she says, I am in love with the bird song, even when it wakes me up early in the morning. I never connected with this sense of awe when I lived in the city. And
Mm.
someone else says, I also appreciate that we are an expression of Earth. So more
Oh.
appreciation for that, Colleen. I was really vibing as well with this idea of you're pointing out when we think of well, I'll just speak for myself. When I think of my hands and my feet, I often think, oh, hand, foot. I don't think about it as being this, wonderful, almost cacophony of feelings and of muscles and bones working together. That it's not just one thing, but is actually this whole world of sensations and just potentialities. And I think that's a wonderful thing for me to keep in mind. These feet, they're wonderful inventions, and I'm grateful that they can do so much. But
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, again, I think one of the things with the body is we can get really fixated on like, all the things that aren't working and maybe are going wrong with the body. And it's like we can forget. I mean, I remember hearing one time somebody said about how many things the liver does in a day, and probably most of us don't feel that at all, but it's really doing a lot. So that the reminder of how precious the body is, even when it's maybe not the way that we wish that it was or things that are happening to it, it's still miraculous in so many ways.
that's beautiful. Colleen, as I know we like to give folks just something to think about as they go forth during the week, maybe a sort of an informal practice that they can use to help build up mindful habits in their daily lives. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about something for the people to think about this week.
Yes, one of the things that I think could be helpful. So we talked about these different anchors of attention, the feet, like the seat, the hands, or maybe the breath. And what I love about those as anchors is that you can access them anywhere. And so you might be standing in line waiting to check out at a store, and it's like that instead of maybe the things that could happen of like I have so many things to do and I really need to get out of here. You could just bring attention to the feet and the stability of the ground beneath you. Or maybe there's a moment that you feel unsettled and you can go to one of these anchor points. Or maybe when you're driving to work, you can sense the steering wheels or on public transportation, really feeling the support of the seat that you're on. So all these ways in which you can kind of tune into those different anchors of attention during your day-to-day life.
It's wonderful, Colleen. Thank you. Now, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights with us this week. I can't wait to be back again with you next week to continue this exploration. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. And thanks to everybody for joining today as well.
A final word before we go from Margaret Atwood, who wrote, In the spring, at the end of the day, one should smell like dirt. Such is the wisdom and rightness of smelling not only are always like roses, but also the clod from which said roses sprung. May we all bloom so heroically from the stuff of life until we meet again next week when we will be back with Colleen Camenisch. Until then, please go forth, folks, and be excellent to each other.